Like a trusted turnout jacket you've had for years, Flex 7 outer shell fabric delivers a perfectly broken-in feel on the very first wear. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of Enforce technology, Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatafabrics.com/flex7. Flex 7, powered by Enforce technology. Only from TenCate Protective Fabrics.
All right. So let me just start this because we don't have Brad here today. But this is Fire Service Court Radio with Chip Comstock and Kurt Barone and myself, John Murphy. Brad Pinsky was going to be on today, but unfortunately he had some whatever the Pinskys have to do. And hopefully his mother's going to be watching this. That will add to the Pinsky influence on us. But today we're going to talk about a variety of things. 2024 is a whole new year that we can, commit crimes, and then you'll have your favorite lawyers step up to the plate, at least for advice and maybe representation. 2023 was certainly interesting, and there's a lot going on, and I have been talking to my colleagues, and I say, why do we go out and do public speaking? Why do we write articles? Why do we do these shows? Because we talk about pretty much the same thing in a different version, and you guys out there are still violating your own policies, violating your laws, discriminating, creating a hostile work environment, and all those sorts of things.
Not the people who are listening, because the people who are listening do, but the problem is there's people who are not listening that are going out and doing these things.
Which makes us smile. That's the first thing. And second of all, it gives some fuel to Kurt Barone's website. That is, if you don't, most of us know what it is. So, and every time I teach a class, I always go, hey, and you need to take a look at Kurt's website because he's got the latest and the greatest stuff that we not the listeners, of course, as Kurt said. And then, so one thing is that I was Mark, who was sort of our dashboard monitor today, commented on my mustache, and I said 2024 is going to be a year that I'm going to be looking like Kurt Barone and Billy Goldfeder when it comes to mustache size, and I think there's the race on. So see how big we can get these things at the end of the year. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to, I think Chip has something that he wants to bring up, and then we're going to all pile on here.
No, I the only thing that came to my mind, one is you were talking about crimes, and I was thinking, some of our folks, it's a matter of high crimes and misdemeanors. And the other thing is some of us are confident enough in our appearance and our lack of facial hair. I don't have to grow that very big, but
even the hair up on top,
which is sort of a perfect segue right into potentially our first topic of 2024. We're hitting it off, starting the year off with a bang, so to speak.
Which is
porn.
And porn mustaches? Is that where you're going with this? All right, Chip, let her rip, buddy.
Well, we're talking just a lot about stupid stuff, but sometimes stupid falls on both sides of the spectrum when it comes to activities within the firehouse. And we were discussing before we came on the air about the illegal and legal things that happen within the firehouse relating to pornography. Mm-hmm. For example, it should not come as any surprise, although again you read about this on Kurt's blog, but a firefighter's charged with possessing child porn in the firehouse, or firefighters charged with that should not come to anybody's surprise. That's illegal. But we occasionally have those cases where somebody in the privacy of their home takes photographs, may send them to somebody else as part of a relationship, and then at some subsequent time, somehow those photographs end up in the public domain on somebody else's computer, on somebody else's phone. How'd they get there? And then what's done with them may be the problem. It didn't start as a problem between the two consenting adults. but then the problems develop after that. And so that's one example of things that may start off and seem or are completely innocent, but as time goes on, the problems seem to snowball. And so I'm going to, at that point, just Kurt was talking about, some of those things were what in the old days may have been funny and part of quote brotherhood isn't necessarily how we want to conduct ourselves now. So I'm going to punt the ball over to Kurt.
Yeah, Chip, we've got a couple of high profile cases that have made it into my blog. I'm aware through conversations that I've had with attorneys and chiefs around the country of another at least dozen or so cases that did not make it into the media, and that I have confidences on, so I won't really be able to talk about. But it's an ongoing problem. It was not a problem when the three of us were young men and joining the service, just because the technology really, you think about, I remember in 1972, 73, when we'd watch a film, we had to have a film camera and projector, and it looked like a movie theater in order to watch a video. But today, that technology exists within people's cell phones, smartphones, and other types of recording devices, and the ability to share it through the internet. So we've got a problem. At the same time, I think people's or society's permissiveness has changed quite a bit as well. And it's not uncommon for people in a romantic relationship to share videos. We are seeing a growing number of people making money, by sharing videos of themselves on the internet. And some of those people later may regret having done so. Maybe they were at a point in their life financially where they needed to do it or wanted to do it or whatever, but it was done and now it's out there. And then 5 years, 8 years, 10 years later, now they're in the fire service, and their past now is catching up with them. So we're seeing all of that. And what we're left with now is fire chiefs who have a full plate of issues that they've got to deal with. They've got staffing, they got new apparatus needs, they got health and safety and everything else. And now all of a sudden, you've got this issue where a firefighter comes to the chief and says, they're looking at videos of me and it's harassing and you need to do something about it. And it might be something that a chief never saw coming, but now you're the chief and you've got to deal with it.
So the question that I have for both of you guys is, when does the privacy of an individual kind of spill over into the public arena? And I know that, I can't imagine why, if I was having sex with my girlfriend or vice versa, and we're recording that sort of stuff, that's, not the way I was brought up. And I just wonder, now,
especially if your wife finds out about it.
Good point. And if she watches this, she may never. But anyway,
I'm waiting for something to come flying at him, like from the side.
She's downstairs, so I'm good.
Okay.
I'm all right. I'm upstairs here in my man cave. So, but I'm thinking, I have a private life, and so whatever I do out of my private life is for me. And so the videos that I may take, and I know this may be a generational thing, but the videos that I may take is a private matter between myself and whoever my partner is. And then all of a sudden, like Kurt was saying, that, it gets out into the universe somehow. And then now, and I'm, as the fire chief, one of my female or male subordinates comes in and say, hey, chief, blah, blah, blah. Where's my responsibility as the leader of the organization, turn on to protect this person's rights, who in the right of privacy did this and videotaped it. Now all the guys and gals are watching this in the fire station. And so would the issue of, now the fire station is a public place, and are there constrictions or restrictions on, watching this sort of, these videos, in the fire station on duty? Does that create a policy violation and it is a legal violation? Because I know that, years ago when the Supreme Court was trying to determine what pornography is, they said, you know it when you see it, but they couldn't really make a definitive ruling on pornography. And so anything that with naked people doing whatever they're doing is now classified as pornography. And even like when you take a baby picture of your child, your grandchild, then and they're naked, I know that when Costco here had film processing capabilities, they get these pictures of babies, your kid, your grandchild, and then they call the cops, and then they call you, and then all of a sudden it's like, why are you taking naked pictures of your grandchild? Which I think is so. When does it all? I guess the question, I'm rambling. I'm sorry, but what is the question is, when does the fire chief and the fire station become part of that discipline issue, and do I have to report it? And as the fire chief, do I have to do something about it?
Yeah, like I said, the chiefs have got enough on their plates. They're not looking. They're not sitting at their desk saying, I wonder what might come up. Let me think of all the possible problems. They're putting out fires all day long. They're putting out fires. So now what they've got to do is realize that this is an issue and it requires some thought. There's some disciplinary concerns for the firefighters who may be involved in taking and sharing or taking the pictures on one side. There may be, okay? There may also be some issues when it comes to protecting the person on the other side that need to be addressed through policies, because if you're going to try to get the behavior to stop, I'm talking here about the watching of the videos in the station, then you've got to have some policies that you can use to enforce that. Otherwise, you're going to be in a situation where somebody is being harassed or claiming to have been harassed, and you're powerless to really do much about it. So you want to kind of think through that ahead of time. And hopefully your sexual harassment and sexual misconduct policies and digital imagery and social media policies are all sort of intertwined to the point where if someone is watching an inappropriate video in the firehouse, it would be a rule violation.
I know, in my experience, I know that Chip kind of lifted this rock up and really hasn't said a lot, but
yeah, he throws the hand grenade out and then sits back and smiles.
I know when I was the deputy fire chief, I had one of our female firefighters come over. She said, the firefighters are watching porn in the fire station, and so I go, okay, what do you want me to do about it? She said, well, I can't sit in the same room that they're sitting in. And so, and I don't want to watch it. It's just, it was sort of the generic stuff that you get, over the internet. Nobody in the fire department was involved in that sort of deal. But then I had a moral obligation that, and we don't have a policy about, watching porn in the fire station. We do now. Inappropriate videos are not really specific to porn, but I had to go over to the fire station. And the guys are still watching the damn stuff, right? So I walk upstairs. I go into the day room, and the guys are watching. And I go, "What the hell are you doing?" And they go, "Oh my God, Chief, we didn't know that we could not do that." And I said, "You can't. All right, we don't have a policy, but I'm just telling you right now." And we had a complaint about it, and everybody knew who it was, right? And then we had to face the repercussions of the complainer. And so you went through this whole moral, I think it was a moral issue for me at the time. And I just said, this is inappropriate. And so, and we're excluding certain elements of our society, the fire services society. So one group of people could, enjoy, watching what I consider to be morally, outrageous, really. So, I don't know.
To me, a lot depends on, again, there are so many factors that come with that. And, you start off, like you said, okay, people just watching what is otherwise maybe legal videos in a station. But, the question is the level of taste, and is it pornography, etc. And that sometimes in policies can be difficult to define. For example, offensive or violent. Don't watch offensive or violent shows at the firehouse. Well, violence could be fights or football games. So some of those policies you have to be very, make sure they're written properly as to the conduct in the firehouse. And again, we get back to the next part is, if somebody did, we talked about the consenting adults, who, if it was just two people and they filmed it and they kept it amongst themselves, we wouldn't even be talking about this. Mm-hmm. It's always when somebody has either somehow got it off somebody's computer or somebody has sent it to somebody, more often the case, sent it to somebody, and it's thereafter spreads like wildfire. And so now that person who, one of the two parties who made that video, who thought it would remain confidential and personal, it's not. And so if that just stays outside the firehouse, it probably wouldn't be a problem. But it gets brought into the fire station either by people watching it, or people talking about it, or people making fun of one of the participants. And now we're into the, as Kurt had talked about previously, it's the environment that an employee is subject to. And so everybody has a right to work in at a workplace that is free of harassment. And to the extent that people are using that video for harassing purposes, again, I think that supervisors have to step in and make sure that people are acting like adults and treating everybody with respect. And if you permit it to continue to go on, if you ignore it, you sort of do so at your own risk. And I'm sure Kurt has a couple of stories where people have ignored that in departments, or supervisors end up getting sued.
Yeah, there's several, two that come to mind. One out of Las Vegas, another one out of Houston. And again, I think part of the issue is that we don't have either the policy or the willingness of supervisors to address it quickly. And I think Chip's right on that point there, that we've got to make sure that when supervisors become aware of the problem, it's addressed as quickly as possible. I think it was the Las Vegas case, but a gal went to, I believe it was a division chief or a deputy chief, and said they're watching a video. And he's like, okay, what do you want me to do about it? And he says, well, I want you to get it to stop. And I think he said exactly what I probably would have said if I hadn't thought about it ahead of time and hadn't had a plan in my mind what I do. But the chief said something to the effect that if I tell him not to watch it, it's only going to make him watch it more. Why? I don't want to say anything because it's going to cause people to want to do it, which is, it looks terrible. And that quote actually found its way into the lawsuit. Okay. So I think thinking this through and, having sort of a game plan for this is going to be critical to preventing some sort of bad outcome from happening.
I always think a lot of the things when we talk about these particular subjects is what that's like to the public. Mm. Well, your firefighters are supposed to be saving lives, protecting property, training, checking equipment, and all that.
Which we do.
Yeah, but what they're going to hear, what the public is going to hear, is they were sitting around watching porn, right? They're not going to focus on all we're going to do. They're going to hear that these guys have enough time, men and women have enough time to sit around and watch porn and then get mad at each other. And so that's the public perception. So one of the things, just from a management standpoint, is should that come out in public, what is the perception then of what of the character of the department and what people spend their time doing? Mm-hmm. And that's the type of allegation that it can have disastrous effects on maintaining your public support.
Yeah, but I think Kurt had it right. I think we need to forecast or forethink about these sort of scenarios. I know when we were all chiefs, we didn't think about, well, what's the problem going to be today? It just kind of comes up and sits in in your office, and you got to do something about it. But the other part, I think Chip talked about, how do we preserve our reputation in the community? And then, do you get out in front of this, because it's going to come in the newspaper, right? So, firefighters watching porn in a fire station because there's been an allegation or a complaint or that sort of stuff. So, what do we do as, leaders in our community? And hopefully that, we put out the stuff that Kurt talked about, is that we do a lot of other things. We do inspections, we do training, we watch videos. Our guys are in school and stuff like that. So do you put out the right videos, of course? Do we put out a news, like a, you get with your media and say, look, this is a one-off sort of scenario in our organization. We apologize to the community and have a whole press release of, this is not the norm for us. It's a one-off, and we apologize to the community. We apologize to the offended firefighter, and and so as we have always said, bad news sells. Newspapers, bad news sells and gets media hits, and not all the bad news should affect the fire department. But when it does, it seems to last forever, and so and I think we need to, when we bring new firefighters in, or even our older firefighters and captains, lieutenants, supervisors, part of their supervisory training is, what's appropriate to do in the firehouse. And, you have to take a look at reputation preservation. And it's a hard thing to do when you have, 1,000 firefighters in there, and everybody has a different, take on what life should be all about. And, are you interfering with my right to watch, my First Amendment rights, my, all of amendment rights that we've kind of, tossed around in the past couple of years? Am I harming your ability to watch material that may not be inappropriate? And, my response is this is the public building. This is, not your house. It's a firehouse, and it belongs to the public. And, I'll articulate what our rule is. I'll make this stuff up as I go. But when I get back to my office, by God, there's going to be a policy on, limiting, the type of material, and I'll consult with my attorneys on whether it's, defendable. And then we put the policy out. But, you need to basically lay the law down as we see it.
The reputation management aspect of what you just said resonates with me in a big way. But you have to understand, and this is based on what I've seen happen in other cases, the victim whose video is being shared, the person who was filmed and is upset about it, isn't usually concerned about the reputation management part of what you just said. They're going to take the position that I'm the white knight. I'm going to fix what's broken in this organization by making this public. They hurt me, and then by you not doing something, you contributed to it, and the public needs to be aware of it. So the idea of being able to just kind of wave the reputation management flag, if this isn't addressed immediately, it's going to be frustrating, because you get somebody involved there that's going to want to go in the other direction.
It's two things that I think of. One is it's not only reputation management; it's really crisis management.
Yeah,
right?
It is
from a crisis. But one of the things that I've learned from doing the show over the course of years is we often, as lawyers, think about how do we react to an issue, or where do we otherwise place blame, or how do we mitigate the damages. And Kurt, you have been one for a long time to say, listen, we don't need to make excuses. We don't need to have policies. We need to stop the behavior before it begins. Prevention is the key. Mm-hmm. So it's letting, if we want to get right down to it, when we recognize, number one, that the culture is changing, as we've already identified. We need to understand that people are going to be sharing pictures more and more, and that the chances of these issues coming into our firehouses are greater now than they've ever been. Mm. But what we need to talk about is that sharing pictures, looking at pictures of other people, is not something we do in the firehouse. We have other jobs to do. This is not acceptable. That's not part of your job. I get it that you might be entertained by it, but you're to leave it at the door. And when it comes here for other people in this firehouse involved, we don't deal with that. And we don't use it to at any time ever ridicule or cause issues for somebody who may have been involved in a scene or in a relationship that you don't know the story behind. And I think it's having some of those honest talks that deal with fellow employee relations, and these could be, it's not just porn, it's gender, it's race, it's whatever else. We have to, the culture has to be one of respect, and if we push that right up front, and then we should have policies. But if people understand what the culture is, hopefully right from the beginning we've taken some of the issues out, and we're not having to worry about crisis management down the road, because people understand it's just not something that's acceptable.
Yeah.
No, that's what we should be teaching our officers, and doing that sort of cultural training as part of our annual recertification or renewals or whatever our training schedule is to talk about respecting each other. And I think we are sort of moving away from that a little bit because the stuff that we're talking about doesn't necessarily come in on the stuff that, like the TV screen and stuff we have in the fire station. A lot of it is on our devices like TikTok and those videos and lots of other things that I bring my phone to work, and so why can't I show a video on my phone to my fellow firefighters without everybody getting offended? And I think that it becomes the issue is now you're using department equipment to show a video, or or am I being easily offended by stuff that we talk about violence and sex on TV and stuff like that. There's not a TV show, I don't think, on that's currently available that doesn't have some sort of sexual connotations or violent connotations, or even the news. My God, you take a look at the news today, it's like it's sensationalism. It's not the news anymore. It's just like, well, how can I get my ratings up? And then they push these.
I'm going to take up a collection. I started a GoFundMe page.
But I just I think that's a good discussion. So anything else on that? You want to switch over to something else? All right. So the thing that I want to talk about, and we could talk about this in like 2 minutes. I'm a newly elected fire commissioner, and I've already said that I thank the 2,000 people that actually voted for me, and I'm going to talk to the 11 people that voted against me.
Hey John, let me interrupt you just in case you haven't heard this comment yet. I want you to hear it. You can hear it first from me. You're not doing a good job. You're not taking care of us. You don't care about us. All you care about is getting elected. Just so that I want to be the first one to have said that to you.
Well, thank you very much.
I've already told, for those 11 people, contact me for free. I'll do the impeachment proceedings.
Got to wait till next Friday. I'm not sworn in yet. So I think I don't think we've ever talked about this, is, what's the legal jeopardy for elected officials in fire districts? And I know that, we've talked a little bit about embezzlement. If I'm the treasurer of our organization and I, feel that I can get away stealing $13 million.
Don't steal $20. If you don't steal $20, it's not worth it. You're gonna go big.
But what now that being I'm a public official, I can't hack back at people on Facebook or Twitter, or put offensive comments on, or so I basically as an elected official, do I lose rights, I guess, as a citizen? And second of all, what is my legal jeopardy as an elected official? And I know that I'm not speaking for everybody, but there's millions of elected people out there that deal with fire service issues. Where can I go sideways? What would it take for me to get
at every turn?
Absolutely. I sometimes wonder why anyone would want to become an elected official today. I really. There's an awful lot of mental illness out there, and people are convinced that they're 100% right and you're 100% wrong, and you're the villain, and they're going to be calling you and emailing you and driving you crazy. And they'll show up at public meetings and try to dominate the meeting, and I wonder. I've got friends that are local officials here, and I'm like, thank God you're willing to do that, because I don't know why. And often they get sued. I got several friends that have been sued over, silliness, but somebody wants to prove a point to them, so they're going to sue them. So thank God there's people that want to do that.
But I guess, John, to answer your question, to the extent it's a governmental liability, governmental entity, and you are a policy decision maker, you have a potential to be sued in any time there's a dispute about somebody's, the policies and procedures of the district or the governmental entity, training, hiring of employees, termination of employees. Again, to this extent, you are the last or the person who has the final say. Adequate training, all of those things, violation of somebody's First Amendment rights, depending on your state, your Second Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights. So there's always the risk to be sued, and but that does come a little bit with the territory. I think to the extent people really take their job seriously, try to become educated as to the roles, the responsibilities, making sure you have good legal counsel, and as a board member, that's not you. You need to have independent counsel. Your job there is not to provide legal advice to the others. That you have a good insurance policy in place that provides for defense and indemnification of judgments or of lawsuits, which are two separate issues. But you get a lawyer provided free of charge, and you should probably think about the investing in an umbrella policy. Some liability insurance policies will not cover elected officials, but at least looking into that will give you mostly peace of mind, knowing that if something happens, you're potentially covered for any claims. But again, it's really it's unlike the fire ground. You don't, with an elected official, you don't have to make snap decisions. You shouldn't make snap decisions. Fire ground, we talk about, you got to make decisions quick. And this goes, I guess, for chiefs. We've talked about this before with chief officers. The fire officers get in trouble for more so for personnel decisions, human resource decisions, than they do operational decisions. And while operational decisions often have to be made quickly, personnel, human resource decisions do not. And it's taking the time to think it out, look at the policies, get advice. That's one of the things I think any board member, elected official, should do the same.
I was just on the phone this morning with someone talking about one of the things that we're talking about here, and it has to do with fiduciary duties. When you're an elected official, and the same thing if you're on the board of directors of a nonprofit, you have a fiduciary duty to the organization, a duty of loyalty to the organization, that your decision making has to be in the organization's best interest, not in your personal best interest. And the potential for someone who's not happy with your vote or happy with what you're doing, to say, look, you're self-dealing. You're voting on things that benefit you. You're voting on things that somehow are going to benefit someone that you either are related to or are a favored constituent, and that you're not doing what's in the best interest of the entity. And that's another area. Then you've got your state ethics laws. Okay. And then you've got election laws. So there's a broad variety, a network of laws and a network of filings that you've got to disclose, that, those things then can become public. What stock you have, what investments you have, what business relationships you have with other people. And now people can kind of pick through that and saying, "Oh, you've got stock in the electric company, but yet you are voting on paying bills that, are going to pay the electric company. You've got a conflict of interest." And now they want to take you out, and they're going to use that as an example of something to take you out for. Mm-hmm. It's just mind-boggling, the network of the patchwork of possible liabilities that an elected official can find themselves caught up in.
Yeah, I know that. I think in Florida, there's a recently passed law this year that requires elected officials in various institutions to do disclosure, public disclosures on investments and, bank accounts and all that other stuff. And a number of them are retiring or resigning because it's just too invasive in their personal life that, if I have a stock or my bank account is such whatever it is, do I want to, put that out to the public where the public doesn't really need to know, where my investments are or, those sorts of things. And so we have to file a public disclosure, financial disclosure as well, as an elected official. And, do I really want to do that and let people know, how poor I am? And
I was
I
saying,
try to,
they find out all the money you're getting from your OnlyFans page.
well, let's not talk about that right now. But anyway, I just happened to, fall into the fire service at the right time for retirement and, those sorts of benefits. But, it is, I agree with you, Kurt. I think it's, there's a huge issue that you're now the face of of an institution that's been around for a number of years, and it's well respected. I think institutionally, but sometimes personalities sort of, again, we go back to destroying the reputation of an organization that now you're a part of, because of your actions. So if I get pulled over for a speeding ticket, do I flash my commissioner's badge, or if I'm getting harassed by people, do I have special privileges? If I can't, respond in an appropriate manner. And I think that's, commissioners' positions in most organizations are pretty low key.
Yeah.
We were not making huge policy decisions. We're not spending mass amount of money. Although we do have, a pretty robust budget, I think, for our fire service in general. But, going to a meeting, attending a meeting, voting on certain things, I think you're right. I think there's some people out there that just, you can't do anything right. And
well, let me give you an example. Let's say that you are going to advocate for increased staffing. Let's say you want to hire another 10 firefighters, whatever it may be. You want to hire some more firefighters. You feel that that's the appropriate thing. And you've got some citizen who is like, I don't want to pay any taxes. I don't think it's right. I've got to find a way to take John out. And so now they're going to go through all of your financial information and try to find something that they can either file a complaint with the Board of Elections or with the State Ethics Commission, or maybe they'll find some other avenue to go after you with. Right. Not about you and your decision. They just want you out of there. They, it's not something that you did. It's just that they know that you are going in a direction that they don't want to see it go in. So they're going to take you out that way. And,
but there are a lot of traps for the wary, and I see this in fire departments, particularly small ones, and you have to understand the state laws in terms of conflicts of interest or legal actions in a contract. So in Ohio, and again, for us, it's tough because it varies state for state. You have to fill out the disclosure forms. Those are public to the Ethics Commission, not to the public. So the Ethics Commission can investigate or can make sure you don't have a conflict, and if you're not honest with it, you could be charged with crime. I know people have been, but it's not the public can't use it. They can't weaponize it like you're suggesting. But what I see is innocent, and this is a violation of Ohio law, where the chiefs, somebody needs a vehicle needs tires changed, and it's the chief's brother has a tire shop. Or somebody can plow snow or cut grass or do something else for the fire department, especially in small towns where you may not have options. So the fire department, if the chief says, "Hey, go ahead, change your tires, so give us a bill," and the trustees pay for it, or the trustee's brother, the elected official's brother, has some as a vendor, and we purchase off and there's a vote. And nobody thinks twice of it because I'm going to it's a good deal. He gave us a great deal. I'll prove that. Or who you hire. You hire somebody who has a relation, and you're basically using the position of being able to vote, hire, retain, provide services to the benefit of a family member, yourself or a family member. And in Ohio, it's an illegal interest in a public contract, and you can't do anything that may benefit that, even though it may be the right for the department. It may be, hey, my brother's willing to sell us the tires for half price. We can't get that anywhere else. Now there are exceptions that you could show that it is a good deal and they're getting favorable treatment, etc. But again, we're just talking about the traps for people who aren't paying attention. Maybe good intentions, but it's a way to get in trouble.
All right. That's a good one. Thank you. I'll try to keep my nose clean. And if I run into legal jeopardy, I'll be sure to call you two guys right off the get-go. And then you'll ignore my phone call because you know it's from me. And
you're probably guilty.
And then, and free legal advice is exactly what it's worth, so I'll have to take that into consideration as well. I think, the other thing that, I don't know, I know that Chip was for reviewing Kurt's blog, and there's a couple other things other than the porn part.
The one segue I was going to have, and Kurt could add on to it, mustaches, so we'll talk about beards. And there was a challenge recently to a shape, I'll call it whether it's facial grooming, whatever you want to call it in terms of beards and SCBA. And there's a number of different cases on that have challenged the beard ban on primarily religious grounds. There are others challenges, but you see religious, and that goes back to days of Washington, a couple of cases in Washington D.C., the District of Columbia, and the case is the results are somewhat mixed, and I believe turn primarily on the lawyering, because there are cases that hold up a department's right to ban facial hair, but those lawyers have done a good job presenting the evidence as to why. So if you find yourself involved in that, make sure you have somebody who understands all the issues. That's a recent case. And Kurt, I don't know if you want to add anything on to that.
Yeah, there was a case out of Washington, I think from the 1990s, and it was back when Dennis Rubin was the fire chief in D.C. And the case actually predates Dennis becoming the chief in D.C., so he was not responsible for the decision making here. But there was a challenge, and actually, now I'm thinking of it, maybe it was closer to 9/11. I'm not 100% sure, but bottom line is they had a lawsuit challenging the beards along racial and religious grounds, and the city attorneys made a strategic error. They had two ways to argue it. That number one, OSHA, NFPA, and NIOSH all say no facial hair at the interface of the SCBA, but we had. By that point, we had positive pressure breathing apparatus. In the past, we had negative pressure. So obviously that was a much bigger concern. So they looked at arguing the SCBA aspect as grounds for no beards. Then they also had these negative masks that were issued in the aftermath of the terrorist concerns, and all police and firefighters in D.C. had been issued these negative masks. And they said, you know what, let's just concede the positive pressure SCBA part of it, and let's argue the negative pressure mask as the basis for the no beard rule. And so they conceded on the SCBA. They didn't fight it. It wasn't on the merits. They just conceded it. And they argued the negative pressure. And under questioning, they had never, ever had to wear a negative pressure, one of these negative pressure masks. They had always worn SCBA. And the judge said, well, if you never had to wear them, that can't be a basis for race discrimination or religious discrimination, and basically ruled in favor of the firefighters saying it's okay to wear them. So that was a strategic mistake by the city attorneys. They should have argued SCBA. Now that case got a lot of press, a lot of, I think it actually went up to the circuit court and was upheld.
It did. And the thing about the circuit court, and this is where I think that case, anybody who's faced with this, the circuit court, the DC Circuit Court of Appeals said, we are limited to reviewing this case to the evidence before us, and to your point. And so there's no evidence of this, and this. And so we have to rule this way, which was in favor of the firefighters against the department. But they add on, had we been presented with the following evidence and laid the roadmap to the next challenge to the department, saying, if we'd been faced with this information, we might have ruled differently. And so I think that's anybody who has to defend cases, that the Court of Appeals decision is where you start looking at some ideas of how to defend those cases. If
Well,
you choose
and
to
now
defend
we've got a growing body of case law over the last couple of months. Anyway, there's been several cases. I think Jacksonville, FDNY was another recent one. Atlantic City. There's been a bunch of cases that have come down in the last few months and certainly last few years that all uphold the no beard rule. Okay,
right. They've done homework.
They did. Now there was one, and now I don't want to speak off the top of my head. It's been within the last couple of weeks, I believe. One was filed by a firefighter who is a dispatcher. I'm just looking through my blog here if I can find it. I think it was Houston. Yes, it was Houston. So he had a firefighter, and he's a captain, but he's assigned to dispatch. And so now he's saying, I don't have to wear a mask, therefore I should be able to have a beard. Okay, so that's percolating out there, and
the key there, just guessing, I've not read the details of the case, is the departments are allowed to have a uniform appearance, so we don't want anybody with a beard. And then the question is he doing so on behalf of, as we talked about, race or religious basis, or is he just trying to be different, right? So I think that will have some impact effects.
I think if I was arguing the city's case, I call this the Marine Corps argument. Okay, in the Marine Corps, every Marine is a rifleman, and if you don't qualify as a rifleman, I don't care if you're assigned to the Pentagon. It doesn't matter where you're assigned; you have to qualify as a rifleman, and it could be the same in a fire department. That every member of this department, every uniformed firefighter, should at any period, at any point, be able to put on an SCBA and go in a building. Whether you're in dispatch, whether you are in fire prevention, it doesn't matter. At any in an emergency, you should be able to. Therefore, you have to be clean shaven. At least that's the argument I would make if I was the city. Now, of course, the other side, if I'm put my other hat on, I got to argue the opposite. So
the question is that there are some medical conditions that African Americans have called folliculitis barbae, which is the ingrown hairs that causes them, considerable amount of discomfort.
Sure.
And so, you think that is there an exception? I guess is there a medical exception for that? If you're an African American, you have that particular.
Well, it's not exclusive to African Americans, but it's just more prevalent.
No, but it's more prevalent there, right? And so, do I have to go on light duty, and be able to grow out a beard until the condition resolves itself? Which, in my experience as a medical provider, it may never resolve. I mean, it's just that condition that you have for the rest of your life. And now, am I eligible to remain as a firefighter, or do I get, put on permanent disability because I have to wear a beard because of this medical condition? So
we put you in dispatch.
I still can't have a beard.
And again, it goes to, does the fire department universally require everyone to be capable of wearing SCBA? And if you're not capable of wearing SCBA for any reason, not just, was it PB? What's the acronym? PBE. It's not just PBE, but if you can't wear an SCBA because you're claustrophobic or for whatever reason, then, you're not, you can't perform the essential functions of being a firefighter. Okay. Now, I think your concern about African Americans is well-founded. And I think that the fact that there is a disparate impact on African Americans could warrant NIOSH and possibly NIST and NFPA and OSHA to take a sharper look at whether or not, based on the newer technology, a deviation might be warranted. But that is a scientific endeavor. It is not a fairness argument. It shouldn't be based on anything other than science. And somebody's got to do the science to change the law. But it shouldn't be based on passion or emotion or self-righteousness. I'm a victim. It should be based on science.
That was one of the things in the Washington, D.C. case, where some of these guys had short beards, and they were all able to pass the mask fit test.
Yeah.
And like, so what's your concern,
Well,
right? And that's based on looking at the science side of it. And in that particular case, the science.
yeah, and I had a grandfather that drove for almost 70 years, and he refused to wear a seatbelt, and he never got killed. Does that mean wearing a seatbelt is safe? Oh, I'm sorry, not wearing a seatbelt is safe. No, it just means that he got away with it. Okay. They made the same argument in FDNY that these guys had they had worn shadow beards for several years and never had a problem. All that means is you got away with it. It doesn't mean it's safe. Okay. But it may be that it's safe. We need the research. And if the research says it's safe, then you know what? We're good to go.
Yeah,
that's the solution.
Technology.
We get into these esoteric arguments that go back to the 1800s, and it's really a question of science. If the technology of the mask manufacturers is there, then I think that it's time the regulations change. If not, sorry, but it's not safe.
Changing, thank you, and I'm still not going to shave because I don't have to wear.
I'm kind of dodging our safety officer. I got to go for my fit test.
Oh, that's right. I mean, you're in a different role.
Yeah,
so I just got an email from Peter Porcilio, and this is sort of new on the media. And I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at it, Kurt, or not. But there's in the national news media, a Nashville firefighter faces reckless endangerment charges.
Yeah.
For allegedly trying to fight a house fire in Rutherford County.
I got it.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
So he happened upon the fire, not his department, basically commandeered a bunch of equipment off the fire apparatus, went into the fire and started giving orders to the firefighters, and not even in his department. And so he's basically been reprimanded for that. But I think the issue, and this is brand new, and I know that we have a lot of firefighters that stop at medical situations, motor vehicle accidents, and those sorts of things. But I'm not really sure of how many firefighters would stop by a house fire not in your district, and all of a sudden now you're part of the fire suppression team, and nobody knows who the hell you are, and you've commandeered all the equipment, and now you're starting to give orders to Chip on how he's going to fight the fire in his own freaking department.
I don't know any of the facts other than what you guys have just said to me. And so I'm going to make a quote that just popped into my brain. And it's going to come across as disparaging to maybe some of the individuals involved, but it's Alan Brunacini, God rest his soul, used to love to say, egos eat brain cells.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know the person involved. I don't know any more about it than what's been in the news media. I am familiar with the facts, but I don't know any more than that. But I am immediately putting a face to it of people that I know who would pull a stunt like that. And I think Chip's comment is exactly right, that they think they're God's gift to the fire service, and that they know everything there is to know, and that these dummies don't know what they're doing. And and again, I could be totally wrong, could be way off base, but in my mind, when I read the article, I'm like, oh, this is just like, and I have an exact person who would pull a stunt like this in my mind that would do something like this. So
none of us, of course.
No.
Most of us are too old to do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no kidding.
I'm too busy running around the fire scene throwing out business cards.
Yeah. So
what else we got? What else?
We've been on for 53 minutes here. So
yeah. We got
we got to save some stuff for next month. I mean, you know, we can't start the year off and do every single topic. We got to, you know, keep a couple in the
back. Our non-viewers will certainly feed us with a bunch of new stuff, and we'll watch Kurt's blog to figure out what part of the country's gone sideways on us. But if you guys have nothing more, then we'll probably end the show right now, and appreciate Fire Engineering and Clarion Group to sponsoring this stuff. We don't have a sponsor this time, but maybe we can use Chip's Law Firm this year as a sponsor. hopefully in the next show we have Brad can appear, and we always appreciate his input on these sorts of shows. Certainly entertaining, and I know that they're not giving Kurt free airtime, but him and Kurt and Brad have a pretty good show that they talk about recent case law and stuff like that. It's highly entertaining and very educational. So if you have a few minutes to spare, take a look at that. And then, and Chip and I do our business, in the dead of night, so nobody knows exactly what we're doing, which is always a good thing. And so without further ado, wish everyone a happy and safe 2024. You'll see us again next month. And then you'll see some of us at FDIC in April. And you'll see us at fire chiefs conferences and other conferences all around the country. And, appreciate you listening to us. And I think we're done. So thank you. Thank you all.
Like a trusted turnout jacket you've had for years, Flex 7 outer shell fabric delivers a perfectly broken-in feel on the very first wear. Flexible, comfortable, and powered with the strength of Enforce technology, Flex 7 outer shell fabric is made to move. To learn more, visit tencatafabrics.com/flex7. Flex 7, powered by Enforce technology. Only from TenCate Protective Fabrics.